banner held high, marching forward through the night. Promises of old will keep as the donkeys start to weep. Stars and stripes forever sway, in the land of the brave we stay. We've got the power now, in the heart of every town. We've got the power now, the Reds are going down.
With a flagpole planted firm,
golden dreams that won't decay,
marching proudly through the day. In the eagle's shadow by, we find our strength and take our pride. Let the voices echo loud, tearing through the waiting crowd. We've got the power now, in the heart of every town. We've got the power now, the Reds are going down. Across the plains and mountains tall, hear the victory call. With courage and with might we strive, in the light of freedom's sky. We got the power now, in the heart of every town. We've got the power now, the Reds are going down.
I thought the world would turn slower, not as fast as it does. Conservative hearts were steady, sure and just because. A simpler time of values, when right was what it was. It seems like those days vanished with just a fleeting pause.
Right-wing dreams of yesterday, steady in the fray, keeping timeless traditions, leading all the way.
Times are changing, feel the buzzing, staying true when they're fussing. Keep the flag a-flying through stormy nights, with the star-spangled banner I stand tall with manners. Cross my heart with hope in sight. Here comes freedom in the land of hope and glory, with liberty. Stick to values in the trends. Families gather, let's defend. Hold the line, keep the bond alive. Truth in our vision, in God we make decisions. For our dream, through drive and strive. Here comes freedom in the land of hope and glory, with liberty. We'll keep fighting for what's right, standing strong in the night. Here comes freedom in the land of hope and bravery, with liberty.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Culturama, where on this show we are trying to reclaim the traditional zeitgeist of classic Americana back into the United States, the one that we have lost so long ago with the induction of postmodernist theory, critical theory, as well as the induction of rather primitive and questionable cultures. On this show, we have the necessary conversations that help shape and change the culture and our perspective of what the culture is. And I want to thank you for joining us today. And oh boy, today we have a lot to cover. Apparently, Matt Gaetz has withdrawn from the Attorney General position. I'm going to be talking about that. I'm going to be talking about a few of Rand Paul's comments as well on the immigration issue. That has been affecting Americans for quite some time. And I don't know if you've noticed, is what a foundational piece of the Trump campaign and the Trump administration. I'll be talking about Nancy Mace's trans bathroom bill, as well as many other issues. So I think you're going to stick around and you're going to enjoy this one quite a bit. And today, I also want to mention that we have a special guest. I will be interviewing Georgina Rose. She has her own podcast online, and she's a YouTuber, and she has a lot of material in which she talks about paganism and alternative religions as well, and spirituality, and how it's proliferating in the United States. And what I've noticed is that, especially within right-wing movements, but in all political sectors really, I've noticed that there is a conversation to be had about these alternative spiritual systems. And I think you guys will enjoy that interview. It will be quite interesting. So that will be later on, an hour into the show. I hope you can stick around in order to catch that interview. But we have a lot to talk about. Also, as well, I forgot to mention, we will be discussing Laura Loomer. So apparently, Milo Yiannopoulos has come out on the Timcast, I believe yesterday or a couple days ago, and he discussed a few interesting pieces of information concerning Laura Loomer, some of which, let's just say, verge on Monica Lewinsky territory. I want to talk about that, as well as many others. He also said that she faked her ethnicity in terms of being Jewish, and he apparently posted some proof about that. I don't know if you guys caught any of that, but it's really interesting. So I'm going to be talking about those things and many other things as well today. All things that are very pertinent conversations to be had as far as it relates to right-wing culture and American culture and the social sector. But I do want to say hi to a few people that have come into the Rumble chats here, so give me a second. I see we have already have people pouring in. I was only live for like a minute so far, so I want to say hello to those that have managed to make it for the first few minutes of the show. I want to say hello. We have Puncho, that's a Pucho from YouTube. That's a new person from YouTube. Thank you for joining. He said Laura Loomer is far from cooked. Also, I can fix her. You know what? She could be fixable, but I think that is a little bit of a difficult task. It's not for the faint of heart. Floby Tenderson, thank you, Floby, for joining us today. 5 minutes ago said howdy, Floby. Entropy Nomad as well says good evening. Entropy, it's very good to see you. We have a Many Peregrine 81 from YouTube. What did she do now? Yeah, there's a lot of information about Laura Loomer that I'll be touching on today. That's going to be like halfway through the stream. I don't want to give out anything away, but there is a stream of information that we have been seeing come out from Milo Yiannopoulos specifically that states that she is engaged in some rather questionable behavior in terms of her, anywhere verging from faking her ethnicity to doing some sexual acts. I'm just going to put it out there. That's what he said, as well as other questionable things. And Laura Loomer has come out and said that she is thinking about, or she's considering strongly about suing Milo. So I'm going to be talking about that. You're just going to have to stick around to get more information and details about that. LDubs78, hello LDubs, thank you for joining. He said, good evening, people. Barney Styles, thank you for joining, Barney. Again, I can't keep my hot female right-wing nut job straight anymore. It's a difficult endeavor, Barney, especially within the right wing. The hot female nut jobs are proliferating and thriving. So yeah, Bucks Nasty. Hello, Bucks Nasty. He said, hey, yo. Good to see you, Bucks. Love Kit is here again. Thank you for joining us today, Love Kit. Milo's stories about Loomer were wild. Yes, they are. I'll be covering them today. It's going to be really interesting. We have a new user join us. JJ4884 says, yo, welcome, J. I'm just going to call you JJ. Thank you for joining us. You are a new commenter, I see. So it's really good to see new names here. Anyway, I will be right back. Oh, Steffi for Liberty said, hello, Daniela. Hello, Steffi. It's good to see you. Thank you for joining us tonight. In the beginning of the show, we have a lot of exciting things to talk about tonight. Anywhere from Matt Gaetz to Laura Loomer. It's never a not exciting show when Laura Loomer is on, right? Or Milo Yiannopoulos. Also going to be talking about Rand Paul and immigration, as well as many other topics today. So you guys should want to stick around for that. And also, big one, we have a big interview today with Georgina Rose. I will be discussing spirituality, paganism, and her podcast as well today. I think you guys will enjoy it. It'll be a really eclectic but interesting and esoteric topic. I just got a donation in, so I want to read that one out loud. From $2, JJ. Thank you so much, JJ. When the dudes run away from a gal opening her legs, you know she's crazy. Cray. Yeah, it is very true. Let me see if I have... That's so true. You never can. Especially in the realm of politics, there are a lot of crazy, I don't like to use the word crazy, but there are a lot of questionable individuals, particularly female, and, you have to be wary about those kind of people, because especially with women and working in politics, let me just put it this way. Women love to gossip, and you just want to be really wary when you enter in the field of politics, or if you're engaging in any endeavors that you are trying to, excel your professional career as it pertains to politics. You want to be careful about who you interact with, men and women, but especially if you have decided to sleep around with some people, just reconsider their mental stability. So absolutely, especially with women, but as you pointed out, men who choose not to sleep with women is, unless she's like very unattractive, I suppose, but it is a really rare thing to occur. So if she's moderately good looking or mid, as the fellas say, and they choose not to sleep with her, there's something wrong going on there. So that's a really interesting and good point, that could also be used as a diagnostic tool. You never know. But as far as Milo is concerned, he claims that he is not homosexual, but chances are that he still is, and that's also a likelihood that Milo did not engage in those endeavors. However, Milo's really good at keeping receipts. He's really good at keeping information and blackmail on people, as I've come to find out as I've been following this story, and we're going to be covering a lot of that, and it just shocks me that Laura was not aware of this happening beforehand. Exactly what I mean by that, I will get to later on in the show, so you guys are going to have to stick around for that. But besides that, I don't want to give out too much away. I do want to jump in and mention something. This is a big thing for the For Liberty Network. Now, for those of you that are unaware, or if you're new to this show and you're just tuning in, I am part of what is called the For Liberty Network. It was started by Austin Peterson, who has the Wake Up America show. He has it every day in the morning, I believe Mondays through Fridays, on X and Rumble as well. And he started the For Liberty Network. That includes my podcast, Culturama, as well as the Liberty Tonight show, which is happening right after this show tonight, which I will send the link into the chat at the end of the show, and you guys can watch it. Really funny show. It's like a nightly libertarian show that we have, similar to other nightly shows on mainstream media, but much better and much more based. Regardless, as part of the For Liberty Network, so it's my podcast, the Liberty Tonight show, and the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson, we kind of had this network going on, right? And I have come to find out, actually, that Elon Musk himself has retweeted a post by one of our network mates. So I'm going to just pull it up here. I want to congratulate King Libertarian. So there he is. That's what he wrote. I don't know if you guys can see that. But he posted this clip, and I just want to give him a shout out here.
There's not a single person in the world who could make this pencil. Remarkable statement? Not at all. The wood from which it's made, for all I know, comes from a tree that was cut down in the state of Washington.
Anyway, I'm not going to be watching this whole time in 2 minutes. I just wanted to point out that this Elon Musk himself retweeted this, and this was one of our members on the For Liberty Network. And if you guys don't know, I'm just going to shout him out really quickly here. The Pencil by Friedman. This is his account, King Libertarian. If you don't follow him yet, follow him now. That is a good way to support the network as a whole. And you know what? We may have direct linkages with Elon Musk. I have also been told that Javier Milei was wearing our shoes. I believe Austin Peterson's designed these sneakers, and he was wearing them, and Elon Musk has saw them already. I don't have that tweet pulled up as well, but I just want to put it out there that the For Liberty Network is growing, and it is making really necessary, important, and significant connections. So it is just, with very important and significant people. So it's just something to keep in mind. So just putting it out there, it could be a good network to support. Anyway, I'm going to be back with a few more stories, and I want you guys to stick around for those because it will be really interesting. I think you guys will enjoy them. Also, if you want to contact the show, 573-416-0635 is the text line. I will be having a panel up with that number as well as we move forward. So there are many ways to support and communicate the show, but urge you guys to send in a Rumble rant if you want me to directly read all of your comments like I have just did earlier today. So from JJ. And I still want to thank you, JJ, for sending those $2. Anyway, I'm going to be right back. I'm going to pull up these upcoming stories, and I first want to touch on what Rand Paul said earlier this morning about the immigration crisis. And you know what? It did catch me off guard a little bit. So I want to get your guys' take on it. If you don't already know, I'm going to pull up the story here in a second. So just hang in there, and I will get that ready for you.
Well, here comes Daniela like Marilyn with a twist. She's got a master's degree and a style you can't resist. On Culturama, baby, we're shaking up the scene. So hit that like, make it click, you know what we mean. Like and subscribe, come on, don't delay. With Daniela at the helm, we're leading the way. It's Culturama, taking back tomorrow today.
You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock, we are forcing behaviors.
Mao ordered his citizens to throw off the 4 olds. Old thinking, old culture, old customs, and old habits. So, your whole life went in the garbage overnight, no biggie. And those who resisted were attacked by an army of purifiers called the Red Guard, who went around the country putting dunce caps on people. Yeah. Who didn't take to being a new kind of mortal being.
If you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted.
Well, things haven't been so sweet for Ben & Jerry's after the company posted an anti-American tweet, a few of them, on the 4th of July. The ice cream makers declared the United States was founded on stolen indigenous land.
Well, someone should tell Target that, because they're now selling swimsuits with tuckums in the women's section of the store. And they even have a line just for kids.
Yeah, we're going to reach out to Ben & Jerry's and ask them how they can live with themselves as they operate a multi-billion-dollar company on stolen land while declaring other people give up their so-called stolen land.
This is the child section. This is literally the kids section. I'm next to a literal onesie that says whatever the hell that means. We have "Glad You Came Out" and "I'm so happy that you're queer" in the kids section. Are you kidding me? I'm sorry, but pride and toddler don't belong in the same sentence.
Good news! Starbucks will offer its workers reimbursement of travel expenses related to accessing abortion and gender-affirming procedures.
Kyle Rittenhouse was seen wearing a Black Rifle Coffee Company shirt, and they wanted to distance themselves from that individual. The employees at the company also were donating to Democrats. Hafer doubled down on throwing many in his base under the bus, describing them as racist and a repugnant group of people.
Hey, Liberty lovers, stop scrolling.
Okay, we are back in Culturama. Thank you everyone for joining today. So my first story, I'm just gonna break into it right now. Okay, right? Before I read any comments or anything that people have sent me, because this is a very important story. And this is a story that I think libertarians and conservatives and Republicans alike should all be aware of. And I think this is going to be a foundational element of what the Trump administration will do and how it will look like as we move forward. And it's really important that we at least have a consolidated viewpoint about how it is that we proceed as conservatives, as right-wingers, as libertarians moving forward, because if we don't have frankly, if we don't have our shit together now, I don't know what we're going to be able to do in the future, in the next 4 years to come, if you know what I'm saying. So there's this story. I don't know if you guys were aware of this, but a caravan of 1,500 migrants are aiming to enter the United States before Trump takes office on January 20th. And approximately it's 1,500 has formed up a caravan from Mexico, and they are just setting in to enter the country. And for all we know, this is a bunch of not just migrants, it's potential criminals, potential drug addicts and drug peddlers, and they're aiming to come in right before Trump takes office. And they're doing this strategically, obviously, so they could basically escape effective as possible. So this is the sorry, I just got a notification, my apologies. Here's a video. Actually, I'm going to see if I can play. Here we go. Here's the main video that we have playing here that's come out of the migrants coming in. And look at that. It's an estimated, let's see if I can make this bigger. That is an estimated 1,500 people coming in through the border. All kinds of people. Obviously, there are families in here, women and children, you know, not necessarily just men of fighting age. But as you can tell, there's many different kinds of people, and that does also include men of a fighting age that could be a potential threat and risk to our country. And as we have seen, actually, and as we have seen already previously, they have become a major threat to our country. I don't know if you guys have been following the case with Laken Riley, but they were just having the case recently in the last few days, and the man is not being put to death for killing Laken Riley. And we have cases upon cases upon cases of that, of migrants killing people, murdering people, and peddling drugs in our country. And the mainstream media is just outright ignoring it. They're not talking about it as much. The Laken Riley case, thankfully, did get some traction, but I don't think it's gotten enough traction as it could have. And so this is truly becoming a major issue for our country, obviously. So this story here's another video. Let's see if this is a different one. Hold on a second. Just a video. But yeah, I mean, this is real footage proof of this happening right now. This isn't just talk. What this is showing that this isn't just like right-wing fear-mongering. You know, this is really happening, and it has been happening for a while now. But the issue why I also wanted to bring this up, and I don't know if you guys were aware of this, but it seems as though as this is occurring, as Trump has had a major win, the right wing has had a major win just a couple of weeks ago with the election. I think that Donald Trump has surpassed a lot of our expectations in the election, and his campaign has done so. They've done a really good job, and there has been a major red wave in the United States. We have that win. He has been making strategic picks for his cabinet, whether or not you agree with them, and we'll be talking about some of them as we follow through with this show, one of which, a really big one, has withdrawn. But regardless, he has been making really strategic picks, and you know, especially with the setting up of the Dodge Department, the Department of Government Efficiency and all that, we have been having major wins occur. And amidst all of this, and amidst this happening right here, where we have an estimated 1,500 migrants going to be pouring into our country as soon as they can, with God knows who coming through the border with, we don't know what kind of backgrounds or histories or criminal activities they have engaged in. We have had libertarian figureheads come out and say things like this. Now, before I share my opinion on this, I'm just going to play out and, just let you hear what Rand Paul has to say about this.
I'm not in favor of sending the army in uniforms into our cities to collect people. I think it's a terrible image, and that's not what we use our military for. We never have, and it's actually been illegal for over 100 years to bring the army into our cities. Army and our military are trained to shoot the enemy. They're not trained to get a warrant to do what they're doing. The police have a difficult job, but the people removing people from our country need to be a police enforcement domestic agency, not the military. While I'm all for remain in Mexico, I will not support an emergency to put the army into our cities. I think that's a huge mistake. I'm not in favor of sending the army in.
So, obviously Rand Paul is not in favor of the deportation program. And as you've heard, he is not specifically in favor of the military coming in and doing this, especially since this seems to be a state-by-state issue as far as he's concerned. Even though immigration is a federal issue, I truly believe, and it's a federal policy. It's a federal policy issue that, frankly, federal officials, I think, should be active in preventing. And I really want to draw attention to this because I don't know what you guys think of this. I'll be happy to read your comments as we go along here in a second. But why is it that when we have, what I'm going to do, I'm just actually going to read my personal tweet on this. I think it just encapsulates it and summarizes it quite well. This is what I wrote. I quote tweeted him. Actually, let me read his tweet first. Rand Paul tweeted this earlier this morning. He said, "We as conservatives who are supportive of Trump need to caution him about sending the army into our cities. It's a terrible image to send to the world, and it's a terrible image for us as citizens." I can understand the sentiment. I truly can, especially as a libertarian, with having libertarian sentiments about as far as the military is concerned and the usage of the military and the application of such and the implementation of certain procedures involving the military. On the one hand, I can understand the sentiment. And I can see where Rand Paul is coming from, and that he's probably thinking that he wants to nip this in the bud before it gets out of hand, before federal powers, explode beyond a limitation that we just can't handle. But at the same time, you have to understand the context and the political context that we are finding ourselves in. This is what I wrote. Disappointed with Dr. Rand Paul's rhetoric, snatching defeat from the jaws of victory at every moment possible. I meant to write every possible moment. Whatever, seems to be the game plan. We won in this issue. Why can't we follow through? Why should we maintain a permanent serf class? And really, that's what I'm trying to get at here with you guys, because just to level with you, like I said, we are living in a situation, in a political context right now, where we have had a major political win. Trump has won. Not only has he won, he won both the electoral vote and the popular vote. He clearly is the popular candidate here. People are finally aligning with Trump here, especially on the immigration issue. And as statistics have shown previously throughout the campaign season, is that immigration is like beyond economy, besides economy. Immigration was a top policy issue that American voters had when in voting on. And that was a decision factor for a lot of citizens. And a lot of people, I think the first time in American history, or at least in American recent history, are people largely supporting mass deportation programs. And so we are sort of on this wavelength right now, in this conservative wavelength, it seems like, that people frankly do want specific programs put in place to create or to implement mass deportations on a grand scale that we have never seen before. American citizens are in agreement on this. And Trump is also having his strategic cabinet picks that I think are being responded to quite favorably by the electorate. And still, we have people coming out as detractors saying things to stir confusion, to stir negativity, and to stir disconcertment with what is happening with the Trump administration or the forming Trump administration. And really, I take a lot of issue with this because regardless of what you think about immigration as an issue or immigration as a process, obviously there's a conversation to be had about how effective are these mass deportation programs going to occur, especially utilizing the military. How will it be facilitated in the most effective manner, especially with certain resources at play throughout individual states? I understand that. However, why do we have to come out and say this right now when we have just had a major winning streak? Can we please be effective as a party for one time without having any detractors come out and stir seeds of confusion and division within the party? Because, I don't know about you, but I love different cultures. I find different cultures fascinating and interesting and learning about them. But I really think that right now we're in the precipice where we have to, as American citizens, make a decision about whether or not we want to revitalize and retain our culture, even if it's multicultural to a degree. I mean, America is more or less one of the most multicultural countries in the world. But there has to be some identity that we have to claim to, as Americanism, as patriotism, whatever that may look like to you. And that does involve different ethnicities and different cultures, absolutely. But we cannot also dilute not only just the culture. This isn't even so much a cultural issue, but we cannot dilute the working class of this nation, because as we come in and we allow these people to come into our countries, we are setting up essentially indentured servitude. I mean, we are maintaining a permanent servant class. Not only that, it's making other Americans, it's breaking down the job market, and it's making it difficult for other Americans to find jobs. And so I don't know what you guys think about that. I'm going to read the comments here in a second, but I just want you to take a look at this video again, and I want you to reconsider, if you do side with Rand Paul on this, I want you to reconsider some of the things that are happening right now. It did look like that guy has a MAGA hat, though. This one? Good for him. A man of a fighting age. Okay, let me go back to the first scene here. Want to see what you guys say in the comments before I go to the next story. But, it looks like we did get donations also, so I'll be reading those off. $10 from Entropy Nomad. Thank you so much, Entropy Nomad. I love to see you in the chat, by the way, so thank you for joining us today, and thank you for the $10. He wrote, illegal immigration at this scale is an invasion by many foreign nations and requires an equal measure of military response. Get used to fighting war on our soil before it becomes someone else's. Exactly. At this scale, it's reaching unprecedented levels, frankly, and it needs to be dealt with. It's coming to a point where it is really truly affecting the job market and the natives of this country, American citizens of this country, and also the indigenous folk, if we're going to go there. But it is affecting the United States quite a bit, and on a scale which I think could be regarded as an invasion. I agree with you. So it does need to be dealt with at a federal level. And I guess, again, I understand. I'm someone that's very, very skeptical with utilizing federal powers. I am a big proponent of states' rights, obviously, and for the states to determine how it is that they want to go about implementing certain policies or addressing certain issues within that state. There are some issues that, sometimes you do need a federal process put in place, especially when it's threatening to the nation. And I understand, and I've been noticing this as a pattern on both sides of the aisle, right-wingers and left-wingers, that they kind of veer back and forth between states' rights versus federal, and they're just cherry-picking certain political issues to basically, push a certain narrative. In some cases, you will have a leftist say that this should be limited to a states' rights issue, and utilizing federal powers to execute this and these programs is very deleterious to whatever it is, like the American identity, constitutional integrity, regardless. And And that may be true. It could be a more of a strategic situation here that we're dealing with, right? It could be, in a way, I do agree that this could be like political cherry picking on certain issues. But at the same time, you have to consider and look that like there is major long-term deficits, major long-term issues that are impacting the country that we will not be able to certainly face with any certainty or any fortitude unless we address it now. And it's just reached levels where it's difficult to really manage. And unless we really do something drastic about it and implement some sort of federal powers, I don't think it's really going to be addressed appropriately in the next few years. Even it could even maybe even less than a year. It's reaching unprecedented levels. So what is a shame is that people lie to themselves about fleeing oppression. They just bring their mindsets and problems with them, wrote Entropy Nomad. Yes, agreed. Okay. It's getting a little heat in the comments I see here, just looking through them. Right, okay. Anyway, provoking indeed. So I have another issue that I wanted to talk about with you guys, and I don't have it pulled up readily right now. It's actually 5:30. I'm going to be right back, and I will pull this up for you because I want to talk about some of Donald Trump's cabinet picks. And actually, I'm actually a little bit behind on time, so I'm going to be pulling up several stories with you. First one's first. Matt Gaetz has not resigned, actually. He's withdrawn from the Attorney General position, and I wonder why. I'm going to be talking about that in a few minutes here with you, and apparently Donald Trump has already found a replacement, so I will be pulling those tweets up with you. But I want to ask you guys this before I go off on the commercial break, very brief. Why do you think that is? Do you think that, because I personally think it has to do with some skeletons in the closet. I think that this was perhaps a situation that's a little bit too awkward for the administration to approach. And so, they kind of asked him nicely, Matt, can you kind of step down? I don't think Matt Gaetz wanted to. I think what happened is that he got his arm twisted. I really do. I really think he got his arm twisted, but that's my personal opinion. But I'm going to be asking you guys if you think that was the case. Do you think there is a more strategic reason for why this occurred? I will be right back. If you want to text us at 573-416-0635, and I'll be having that panel up here in a second. So don't go far. We will be right back with some of the extra stories. And in about 30-ish minutes, we will be having our interview on here with Georgina Rose. So you guys don't want to miss that as well. I will be right back. Stay tuned. And I'm going to actually put up that text line panel here in a second so you can take a look at it.
I'm glowing in the night, shining like a star in this atomic age, a brighter by far. Untouchable energy, it's a glowing affair. Ready, ready, I'll take you everywhere. I'm untouchable now, feel the power in the air. Radioactive rhythm, but sense without care. Electric and alive in this atomic embrace. Unstoppable now in this glowing space.
We were towns with friendly neon signs. We were living endless simple times. Leading vipers its crazy schemes benign. In our hearts we long to rewind.
Oh, the past was where the love belonged. Singing our nostalgic song in a world that felt so right and true. Without progress it's to misconstrued.
We stand firm in our belief. Hold tight. Through the times clearer we can see. Crazy world spinning round. Stay grounded. In our hearts simple truth supreme. whisper of freedom and liberty rings true. Our foundation strong and deep. Holding on to what we know, while the rest of the world lets go. Steady paths we choose to follow, while the winds of change blow. In the story we built for trust and doubt, time flies but we won't bend. Communists talk loud and fast, stay silent. Our quiet strength is our reply. So salute to change but pause. Reflect in unity, our dearest friend. Holding on to what we know, while the rest of the world lets go. Steady paths we choose to follow, while the winds of change blow. In shadows we find our light. Through chaos we stay upright. With courage, faith on our side. Forever. Standing firm, our guide. Holding on to what we know, while the rest of the world lets go. Steady paths we choose to follow, while the winds of change blow.
Okay, we are back. Thank you everyone for joining today. I see we have a bigger audience on Rumble today more than usual, so that's really good to see. Thank you everyone. Now, I did see some people in the comments asking if the text line works, and yes, it does actually work. And I just got a few texts here, so I will be reading those off here in a second, but first I do have a Rumble rant I want to read out loud. It is from Nomad Johnny. $2. Thank you so much, Nomad Johnny, for joining us and donating. He wrote, I'd like to believe that we can address this issue 100% while still keeping Rand's concerns in mind. Yeah, you know, I would like to think that as well. And I hope that's a possibility. But I believe that with the degree in which we are facing this issue, I don't know how possible it is to just limit military intervention to like the smallest degree, or not have any federal powers executed on this. I don't know how possible that is. And I guess we're just going to wait and see what Trump has in mind and how exactly he will implement these programs, or if he will at all, right? It could just be talking points. But I really do think that Trump wants to do something about this. But we're just going to have to wait and see on that one. And also, I did get a couple more texts here. So I got one from JJ. Thank you, JJ, for texting us earlier. He wrote, Laken Riley was a student of the prominent medical school in my area, Augusta University, but was studying off of the UGA, University of Georgia campus. Jaguar Nation is mourning her passing. That's very sad, but thank you for sharing. And then he says, congrats to Pam Bondi. And he sent a link, and she is nominated as the new Florida attorney, nominates former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi as his new Attorney General nominee. You know what? JJ, you have just broke the news out before I did. I was about to talk about that, but yes, Donald Trump has found a replacement for Matt Gaetz. So I'll be talking about that in a second. And then I just got another text from someone else that wrote, Nick Sortor said that Matt Gaetz only resigned from the 118th Congress. He won his re-election from the 119th Congress. He can still claim his House seat since he is representative-elect. Is this true, or is it possible? That's a really good question. I don't know actually the specifics on that. I think it still could be possible. I've heard some talks that there would be some issues going in the process of having him become Attorney General. I don't know how true those things are. I don't know how true those claims are. I still think it very much would have been possible, but it seems as though that will be brought to a standstill moving forward because he has willingly, as we have come to find out, hold on a second, let me pull up the news here. He has willingly withdrawn from this process. So I have I know. I have CNN pulled up. I'm sorry. Honestly, I could not find a lot of articles on this for some reason, so I just looked it up and I found a CNN website, or there were the CNN website detailing this. It just recorded his new AG pick. But Pam Bondi, I have not that. Yes, I have this tweet up right here as well. President Donald J. Trump on Truth Social has just announced the nomination of Pam Bondi. She was former Florida Attorney General. I will read this out loud for you guys right now. You heard it here first, by the way. Probably not. You probably heard on Twitter too, but he says, I am proud to announce former Attorney General of the great state of Florida, Pam Bondi, as our new Attorney General of the United States. Pam was prosecutor for nearly 20 years. I don't know much about her, and it seems to be that Donald Trump is exclusively selecting Florida officials or Floridians for his cabinet picks. I find that of a topic of interest, but this obviously seems to be a strategic move on his part. But I know very little about her, so I'm just going to read this out with you in real time. So it turns out she's a prosecutor for nearly 20 years, where she was very tough on violent criminals and made the streets of Florida safe again for Floridian families. It was also Florida's first female attorney general. Okay, interesting. She worked to stop trafficking of deadly drugs, reduce the tragedy of the fentanyl overdose deaths. Interesting how he capitalizes certain words here. Attorney General, I understand. Fentanyl overdose deaths, FOD. I wonder if that's done on purpose. Anyway, which have destroyed many families across our country, capitalized again. She did such an incredible job. All right, so it looks like with her background, it would make sense why Donald Trump would select her, especially with the drug issue that's being proliferated in the United States. Once again, directly tied to the migrant crisis that we are facing. But yeah, that's the replacement. What do you guys think about? What do you guys think about Pam Bondi? Here is her Twitter account. So it's her personal account. Interesting. I wonder why he didn't pick her first. She seems to be a very decent pick here. Interesting why he chose Matt Gaetz. Now, but moving forward with the Matt Gaetz story, yes, he has decided to withdraw. There's some talk about whether or not this has been done on purpose. Maybe he's done this initially to garner some attention, and Matt Gaetz was all this entire time scheduled or planned to withdraw. I don't know what the situation could be. I really do think, however, that he withdrew with his arm twisted behind his back, because I do think that Matt Gaetz, by the way, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but doesn't he look like a caricature of what a Kennedy would be? I'm just leveling with you guys. This is like a parody of what a Kennedy would look like. Don't you think so? I saw also someone compare his looks to either Butthead or I think it was Butthead. The Beavis and Butthead character, the one with the brown hair. Really interesting. I think that one was quite a really salient comparison there. But anyway, moving on with the story. He has faced significant scrutiny over sexual misconduct allegations. Now, I'm not going to be getting into this, and I know and I'm not a Matt Gaetz expert. I know it gets quite complicated, but I really do think that considering some of the skeletons in Matt Gaetz's closet, it may have not been the most strategic pick or the best pick. I know there are other opinions as to why he may have withdrew. I really do think, however, that this was a mistake pick, and that, going forward, some conversations were had, and they may have told him to withdraw. Maybe it also could be that something else happened that we're just not aware of. Something more spicier could have happened that we're just not aware of, because I don't know if you guys noticed earlier today, but there was a motorcade leaving, and apparently this has been debunked or something, but there was about 20 to 25 vehicles that are reportedly appeared to be full of Secret Service leaving Mar-a-Lago. A lot of weird stuff going on in Mar-a-Lago, and with a couple of ambulances as well. I wrote that Donald Trump is personally strangling Matt Gaetz, so, something must have happened. I thought to myself immediately, something must have happened for these ambulances to immediately show up. But it actually turns out that these are part of J.D. Vance's motorcade, which always has ambulances as a precaution. So there you go. Not as exciting of a story there, but I thought that, you know, maybe something had occurred. Something had occurred to bring that up, to incite the withdrawal process. But yeah, it's quite unfortunate that this has happened. I know that a lot of people were excited about Matt Gaetz becoming Attorney General. I know that some people said that this was a really gutsy pick, and it was kind of like an FU to the system by picking him, especially with someone having as salacious of a background as Matt Gaetz. I personally thought it was a risky move, and I think I was proven right in this case. But regardless, I don't know if you guys think maybe differently. I really do think, though, they say it was part of J.D. Vance's motorcade. I don't know about that. I think that's a cover-up. Again, call me a conspiracy theorist, but I truly think that there's something fishy going on there. Regardless, I also wanted to talk about this cabinet pick as well as the Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon. I believe is how you pronounce her last name, wife of Vince McMahon, co-founder of WWE. A lot of people were coming out with this the other day. I believe it was yesterday when I first heard about it, yesterday morning. But people are kind of like, not kind of. People have been coming out laughing and making a joke about this situation, saying that, you know, I've heard some people say it's a humiliation ritual for the Department of Education, and that he's going to completely dissolve it, and it's going to be meaningless as an institution, and so therefore he has picked someone like this. But I've heard some people say that this is a moronic move. As you can tell with some of the comments here, some of the choice comments, the top selected comments I have here, you see people commenting saying like, I don't see a correlation between wrestling billionaire and education. He's just appointing his best friends who clearly aren't qualified. I have an opinion about that. He's just picking his friends. People are saying, you know, this is an inside pick. I can't even tell if these are satire anymore, to be honest. But because it's another billionaire, and we're basically replacing the government with billionaire elites, I'm leaning towards this could be real. So, yeah, people were making this out to be a big fat joke. But really, if you just kind of take 5 minutes, not even, to look into her background, it actually turns out that Linda has had a history working in the sector of education before. And detractors, I'll read my tweet out here, but detractors will try to frame this as a joke pick by Trump because of her background with WWE. But somehow, every single time, they fail to mention that she was appointed to the State Board of Education by Governor Jody Rell back in 2009. She also ran for political office, I believe, a few times, and she was administrator for Trump's SBA in 2016, or I believe it's the Small Business Administration. So, yes, she has previously worked with Donald Trump before. This is true. He clearly wants to fill his cabinet with people that he can trust now, right? People that he already has established connections with, and moving forward in the presidency, he wants to be more successful in what he is doing. And unfortunately, sometimes that means picking people that you have previously worked with. And on one side of it, this could look rather suspicious, but on the other side of it, you know, he has to do this. This guy has a target on his back everywhere he turns, and really, you know, he can't be comfortable with what he's doing, considering some of the issues that he has faced in the past. I don't think I have to mention that at large here, but yes, he is picking previous friends, but it's not like he's picking joke picks here. This is clearly done on purpose. Linda has had history working in education before. She has worked for the State Board of Education before, so she has history here. And people framing this as a giant joke and a large joke goes to show you how mainstream media will go out of their way. Obviously, I don't have to reiterate this over and over and over again. You already are aware of this. And also another reason why you're probably watching my show is that the mainstream media will try to shape this in a light, or frame this in a light, or shape this in a way in which people will not take it seriously from the get-go. Now, I personally think that picking Matt Gaetz was a risky move. It clearly was sending out a message, and it didn't work in their favor. But I think with certain picks, like even the establishment of the Department of Government Efficiency with Elon Musk and Vivek, yes, some of the picks that he is doing is meant to send shockwaves throughout the country and start conversations. And he's clearly sticking it to the system by having some of these picks, right? But Donald Trump is not stupid. He's not moronic, okay? He very well is aware of what he's doing. He's just being aware of who his friends are this time. And clearly, I think that what he is doing, he's picking people like Linda, like Vivek, like Elon Musk, and all this. He's being a little bit more careful this time, and he's going to surround himself with a fortress of friends before he tries to implement any serious or long-term policies. So I don't know what you guys think about that, but I really do think that Donald Trump knows what he's doing. I want people to trust the plan here, okay? I've seen some people make jokes about the Matt Gaetz situation, saying how we probably shouldn't trust the plan moving forward, considering the withdrawal process. I will admit the Matt Gaetz pick was rather questionable, but I think that Donald Trump is doing his best to make an alternative system that no other administration or presidency has seen before, really, if you think about it. Yes, his choices are unorthodox, and it is sending a message, but we don't know how effective they will be. They could be 10 times more effective than what any other previous administration has done. So even though the plan looks rocky right now, I think it's too soon to say whether or not it will be successful. I still think that we have some time to wait before we can actually make that assertion. Okay, we have a good number of viewers on Rumble. Thank you, people, for coming in and listening in on the show. Checking in on the Rumble rants, okay? I just want to reiterate, everyone, if you want to support the show and the channel, I would very much appreciate a Rumble rant. Since I am getting more comments here than usual, I will not be able to get to every comment in the stream, but if you really want me to read your comment, make a donation as small as $2 to the stream, and I will for sure read it out loud. Otherwise, if you want to support this channel and the channel's endeavors, as well as the For Liberty Network, follow us on Locals through the forlibertynetwork.com on Locals, and there you can make a one-time donation or a consecutive donation monthly, and that goes a long way in setting up those alternative network systems and alternative right-wing institutions of media that we can all fully support and watch and trust in. I've heard some people dub this recent election as a podcast election, and that it really was the election in which was greatly spurred by and affected by appearances in podcasts and conversations on political podcasts, including Joe Rogan's. And, people kind of laughed at Donald Trump mentioning Joe Rogan on his opening speech after he won, saying that it's a big fat joke, but it really isn't. I really truly do believe that online media and these online spaces and podcasts, including ones like Joe Rogan's, really did affect the narrative of the election and may not have single-handedly changed the outcome of the election, but greatly influenced it. And I think you're fooling yourself if you think his podcasts and other conversations online did not affect the election. And this goes both to left-wing and right-wing streamers as well. I mean, there are streamers on the left-wing that I think heavily influence the electorate, as well as on the right-wing. More so on the right-wing, though, because as the right-wing has come to face is these major cancellations and these major platforms canceling them, like YouTube, for instance. And so throughout the last, 5-6 years, right-wingers and conservative pundits online had to learn how to build these alternative networks so that they can thrive regardless of what platform they're on or how canceled they are. And that makes us a little bit more robust and successful in the long term than the left wing. So that's all I got to say about that. If you want to be part of that fight, feel free to donate to the stream. I'd love that. I love to see that. And also, if you want a more tangible outcome of your support, you can also visit the forlibertyshop.com, and there we have the Culturama line. You can buy sweatshirts and pillows and tote bags and mugs with the logo, the Culturama logo on it, or my face on it. It goes a long way in supporting the show, and also you get a gift out of it. And I know that Christmas is coming up and we are in the holiday season, so go to the forlibertyshop.com and purchase those. So I have an interview that I will be doing in about 5 minutes or so. So I'm going to be pulling her up. This is Georgina Rose. I'm going to be talking to her about paganism, esotericism, and a lot of other interesting things that I think directly impact us in more ways than one. Spiritually, metaphysically, and otherwise, also potentially politically. I think you guys will like this segment and this interview on the radioactive exclusion hour. And also, well, it's not an hour, it's a segment, but regardless. Also, I'll be talking about Laura Loomer. Is she cooked? I'll be talking about her after the interview. You guys do not want to miss it. You should probably stick around for that. So I will be right back. I'm going to bring up my interview guest here in a few minutes, so stick around, and we are all going to engage in the culture war as we proceed forward. Thank you.
Well, here comes Anita like Marilyn with a twist. She's got a master's degree and a style you can't resist. On Culturama, baby, we're shaking up the scene. So hit that like, make it click, you know what we mean. Like and subscribe, come on, don't delay. With Daniela at the helm, we're leading the way. It's Culturama, taking back tomorrow today.
You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock, we are forcing behaviors.
Mao ordered his citizens to throw off the four olds. Old thinking, old culture, old customs, and old habits. So, your whole life went in the garbage overnight, no biggie. And those who resisted were attacked by an army of purifiers called the Red Guard, who went around the country putting dunce caps on people. Yeah, who didn't take to being a new kind of mortal being.
If you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted.
Well, things haven't been so sweet for Ben & Jerry's after the company posted an anti-American tweet, a few of them, on the 4th of July. The ice cream makers declared the United States was founded on stolen indigenous land.
Well, someone should tell Target that, because they're now selling swimsuits with tuckums in the women's section of the store. And they even have a line just for kids.
Yeah, we're going to reach out to Ben & Jerry's and ask them how they can live with themselves as they operate a multi-billion-dollar company on stolen land while declaring other people give up their so-called stolen land.
This is the child section. This is literally the kids section. I'm next to a literal onesie that says whatever the hell that means. We have glad you came out, and I'm so happy that you're queer. In the kids section. Are you kidding me? I'm sorry, but pride and toddler don't belong in the same sentence.
Good news! Starbucks will offer its workers reimbursement of travel expenses related to accessing abortion and gender-affirming procedures.
Kyle Rittenhouse was seen wearing a Black Rifle Coffee Company shirt, and they wanted to distance themselves from that individual. Key employees at the company also were donating to Democrats. Hafer doubled down on throwing many in his base under the bus, describing them as racist and a repugnant group of people.
Hey, Liberty lovers.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the radioactive exclusion zone, where I like to talk about figures online that have rather radioactive opinions or otherwise interesting. And today I have with me Georgina Rose, also known as Dat Darling online, I believe. Georgina, I'm just going to give it away to you. Let my viewers know who you are exactly and what it is that you do online. I know you have a podcast, a Substack, a YouTube, and many other things, but I really do love your ideas. But I just want to give you the floor and tell us what it is that you do online.
Yeah, so my name is Georgina Rose, and I've been online for probably the past 4 or 5 years. And I largely talk about metaphysics, paganism, and esotericism. Really began kind of originally talking about how to use metaphysics to improve your life. Now, as I've discussed more and more, and I've embarked on my podcast project, Postmodern Iconoclast, I've kind of been talking about how we can use metaphysics to improve our lives. Of course, that's a key of what I discuss, but also kind of how it reflects on society and how we can understand the postmodern world and sort of get ourselves through it and improve society, like using paganism metaphysics. Ideologically, I am a perennialist. If you guys have read like Glennon, you'll have some insight into what perennialism is. If not, it's kind of like an idea that there is a core tradition and truth to the world, and all the different religions and mystic revelations people have had was them kind of tapping into it. But due to the constraints of the human mind, we've not grasped all of it. I do generally consider myself a pagan. I would say I'm a pagan. I worship the gods. I really have a love for paganism because I think it honors nature, I think it honors the ancestors, and it has a great way for people to have mystical experiences. Because I think there is a difference between reading religious text and actually experiencing the divine, and I think people should move towards the latter, because if you're just reading these things, I mean, that's why you see so many people that are religiously hypocritical or not applying it in a way that actually benefits them and benefits the world around them. And so I definitely push people to have like direct spiritual experiences and seek out the divine. It's certainly a unconventional perspective on religion, and I'm polarizing even within the pagan space for a whole plethora of reasons, but I think that these spiritual traditions are really valuable, and I think in a world that's so hectic, right, there's so much happening in our world that is daunted, disoriented, that people are struggling with. I think having a spiritual path and a spiritual practice is vitally important, and that's really my sort of mission online and what I do. That's pretty much my work.
Yeah, and I do also watch your material, and I do find it very interesting. Now, I am personally Christian, but I find a lot about what you say and write online really interesting, and I think you're touching on I don't want to call it, maybe it's a zeitgeist, some kind of, maybe it's a subculture, but I am seeing this thriving culture online, or interest, or I suppose a reinvigorated interest in something like paganism, or what you mentioned, like worshiping the gods, right? And almost like adopting this new pantheon that what the ancients have done in the past. And I'm seeing this occur on multiple aisles of multiple political sectors and on both aisles of the political spectrum. Now, this podcast, of course, is primarily focusing on politics, but I also talk about culture. And I've noticed this span throughout many circles online, and I kind of wanted to get your take on if you think paganism and interest in esotericism even is on the rise, and if so, why do you think that is?
Yeah, so it's been on the rise. I mean, kind of the community as it is has kind of gone up and down over time, right? There's been moments where it's gained traction, moments where it's fallen off. There have always been consistent people who have been involved with it for a very long time. I've been a member of the community and practicing this stuff for a very long time within my life. And I've noticed that the paganism, I'm going to call it the trend because it really has increased in popularity. It began, I would say, 2015, 2016. And I think it kind of peaked right around 2020, which was, of course, during that very horrible time for pretty much everyone.
Yeah.
And now it's still, I would say, it went down a little bit, but there's still a consistent number of people. I agree with you. I've seen it on both sides of the aisle. The thing is, though, with the pagan community that's really wild is it's very polarized, right? You see people kind of on the harder edges of either side. I think that's just because people drawn to paganism prefer fringe ideas. Mm-hmm. And I think paganism can lead kind of, depending on if you're like Wiccan or you're like a Nordic pagan, right? It can lead in very different directions.
Yeah.
I think the reason for it being so widely adopted now is I think that people are struggling in the modern world and they want spiritual answers. And paganism appeals to a lot of people because of the connection to nature, right? We live in a super technological world, and a religion that actually goes against that and is about honoring the natural cycles appeals for that reason, right? People who are disillusioned with the alienation of society, a religion that's about honoring the natural cycles, honoring your ancestors, honoring the gods, right? It's a complete contrast to that, right? Yeah. It's a reaction in a sense. And that really appeals to people in this world. And as well, since paganism is community-centric, if you get involved with it in like a real life sense, right? You see a community where you're going outside and you're doing, you're seeing nature as your church. You're invoking the gods directly, right? That also appeals to people because there is some people who kind of have an authority problem, and they're like, well, paganism, you can commune with the gods directly. Now, not all pagan groups are like that. Some are very strictly hierarchical. But it's those kind of different urges that are kind of pulling people towards it. And I do think it will continue to gain in relevancy as time goes on because more people are doing it, there's more materials, and I think it's just kind of a natural reaction, right? Yeah. I think if you are disillusioned with the world right now and you want to go back to nature, it makes sense to be pagan. It's a pretty logical conclusion. I've noticed I kind of live in a smaller area now, even here, like I've met pagans, which actually was quite a shock to me. So I think it's a good thing. Now, there is a problem with paganism, and this is one of my gripes with the community, is paganism is a broad tent term. Mm. It means a lot of different things, right? Like, if I went up to two people, and they're pagans, like, I could get someone who's like a Wicca type, who really doesn't agree or believe anything I think, who just kind of likes, like, crystals and whatnot, or I could get someone who is very similar to me. And so, that's a bit of a problem. I think, pagan has become a really, really vague term. And I think there are things that are not really paganism, that are just like New Age activities that have been thrown under paganism when they really have no historical, ideological, or philosophical relation. So, I mean, I guess that could be part of it too, right? The term becoming broad means more people are coming in, but I do think there is also still a rising genuine interest. Mm-hmm. And I think that is happening now for a reason. I think there wasn't a rise in paganism in 2009, 2010, which I know were low points in the community. Like I think there is a current reason for it.
It's interesting that you mentioned the superficial elements as well. How you've mentioned that there's people that could just be into crystals, right? And I do notice this trend a lot as well. How do you determine whether or not someone is into it? I guess, I don't know if you use the word superficial, but like more stylistically or aesthetically or just superficially, or they really are, purposefully doing these practices to purposely engage with and benefit their lives. Is there like a systematic way, I guess, to engage with these ideas? Or because I understand, as far as I'm aware, it's not as formalized as a religion, say, as like other religions. So like, how do you exactly determine that? And what would you determine as like, I guess, a real pagan versus a non-real pagan?
Yeah, so I think it is definitely less organized than other religions. There are organized groups that have been around for quite a bit, but those are still, like, there's no hope of paganism. Even, like, in traditions that are some of the most organized, like Nordic paganism, right? There's a lot of organized groups for that, and Celtic traditions also, there's a lot of, like, organizations for that, and some of those have quite a history. There's still no hope of paganism, and so being a member of a group or part of a specific organization doesn't necessarily... It's not the line. The big test that I think mentally when I'm talking to people is, do they define it as a religion? Mm-hmm. I find that is a big indicator, because a lot of people, I think, and this is one of my biggest gripes of spirituality right now, is they see spirituality as just a thing to do and not a holistic mindset, right? It's not something you actually are adopting. Like for me, I believe in the ideas of virtue. I believe in what the ancient Greeks were writing about. I read Plato and I understand that as a scriptural type thing. I consider myself deeply religious. Like if I am asked, are you religious? I say yes. Mm-hmm. I am a religious pagan. Whereas if you ask someone who is more superficially into crystals or whatever, or Reiki, all these things, a lot of them don't even have to do with paganism. A lot of them are just general New Age spiritual practices. They just like the term pagan because, I mean, it's, it's become watered down. Is, are you religious? Because I hear this term, I'm spiritual but not religious, a lot. Mm-hmm. I hate that. That doesn't make sense, right? Because if you're doing these practices and you think they work, there has to be a metaphysical and a philosophical reasoning why they work, right? Yeah. If something is, there has to be a law to it, right? There have to be laws to the universe. And I have had a lot of conversations with Christians, and they actually agree with me on quite a few things where I'm like, yes, there is structure to the universe, there is objective truth, all of these things. I can have some really interesting theological conversations with Christians, actually. Because in terms of, like, once you get into things like mysticism and higher ideals, things start to overlap quite a bit, because if there is objective truth and we're having seen all these experiences over time, obviously you're going to have similar kind of things emerge, right? That's why similar spiritual practices pop up around the world. Now, if someone sits there and they say, well, I'm not religious, I'm just spiritual, it's the universe, which the universe is just someone's term for God, who's too scared to say God. Mm-hmm. I find that's always a determiner, right? Yeah. Is like how far are you taking it? And then you can look at someone and be like, well, do you believe in things like virtue, right? Because the idea of virtue ethics is a pagan concept, right? Morality actually has roots in pagan philosophy. And so you get into pretty clear lines once you start having conversations with people. But of course, from the outside, we do all get lumped together, right? And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon because people simply aren't doing the research, and you know what I mean. They're not looking that up, which I don't think everyone should have to know all the nitpicky hair splitting of my community. But
sure, as with many communities, it gets really daunting sometimes, the details here, but yeah, though that's really well put. It's interesting. You know, I did notice that, and I was on your podcast before. I remember we talked quite a bit about Schopenhauer as well as other things, and there are aspects of paganism that I find interesting as well, but also, you know, I like to call myself, I had in my bio, I called myself an Artemisian, I think is the term I used, a vitalist, right? Because I think that certain, I don't know if I use that term correctly, I'm referring to Artemis, but there's like certain deities that in parts of various pantheons that you can look to that I think embody certain qualities and virtues that you can try to embody. And I think that's important, and I've seen kind of like this reemergence happen, especially in right-wing circles, but those are just in circles that I'm in, but I've seen it happen also in various political groups as well. I did want to ask your opinion on, however, and I think we touched on this the last time I was on your podcast, but what do you think, do you think there's a pattern in terms of like the gender wars involved as far as paganism is concerned? And what I'm asking specifically is that because as we see with politics specifically, how partisanship is the gap between the two parties is widening. We also see the same thing occur within the gender, called the gender wars within the culture wars, right? And so do you see something like that occurring within the pagan community or various pagan communities? Is there more of an attraction for women to get into these circles more than men, or do you see more of a reemergence of interest within men as well right now? But what's your take on that?
Yeah, it kind of depends on the circle is the thing, because we're talking about paganism. It's a broad tent. Certain traditions are almost all women, whereas some are majority men, right? Like I have been to I lived in New York City for a while, and I've went to every single pagan group in New York City that I could find a listing to at least once, just to see it. Now, what I have noticed in sort of my survey of this, because it's very interesting, is, I mean, I think generally, philosophically, culturally, politically, men and women are broadening in their gap between each other on the whole. I think there's a like departure of those two sexes, and that's why the sex war is such a thing, which is of course horrible for society. I don't think men and women should be at each other's throats because metaphysically, the divine masculine and the divine feminine need to be in balance. Those two need to come together to create union. So I think the sex wars are horrific. And I wish those could be bridged. And I would think people with a spiritual understanding, whether Christian, as Christians obviously see there's divine feminine aspects to Christianity, like Mary and all that. And, you know, within paganism, obviously, you should be honoring gods and goddesses ideally, right? You would think spiritual people would bridge these two things together. Now, it doesn't always happen because not all humans behave how they should be. I have noticed, like, the witchy side of the community, which I'm not really a part of, honestly, is very female. Whereas I've noticed the more mysticism, the more ritual-oriented, and the more reconstructionist tends to be very male heavy, right? There's kind of two ways to approach paganism. You can do it in a more eclectic way, or you can be trying to like reconstruct historic traditions. And I find the reconstructing historic traditions is mostly male. Whereas kind of like eclectic, especially as you get closer to the witchcraft end of the spectrum, right? That's almost all women. Like traditions like Wicca at this point are overwhelmingly female. Whereas if you go to like a Nordic pagan group, right, that's mostly men, right? There's going to be like I was part of a like an Hermetic type group for a while, and it was like me, two other women, and like all men, which was like I was one of the few women there. And my community is mostly male actually. Whereas I talk to other pagan creators who talk about like more folksy stuff, which is not really my wheelhouse at all. Mostly women. So the community is divided, like the sub-communities within the community, some are female heavy, some are male heavy, which I don't love that. I would like, you know, these things to be a bit more balanced. But I think it's just certain systems are appealing more to women because of different philosophic and cultural influences than men, right? Also, some traditions appear outwardly more like masculine. Like I think some of the more like there's certain groups like in the heathen type sphere that go very manly man in their presentation, and so obviously like scares the women away a bit, right? So
Yeah, that's
I
true.
think it's just really a like community kind of splintered thing, like. But I do wish that was not as much the case. I know within most cultural spheres, though, that's kind of happening. I mean, at the end of the day, like paganism still exists within the broader culture, and so broader cultural trends are going to affect us as well. Wish that wasn't the case, but is what it is.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you, I guess you already touched on it, but why do you think, I guess, in the more witchy elements of paganism, why women are more attracted to it? Do you think it more has to do with the history of witchcraft and the history of witches in general, or do you think it's more of the aesthetic elements that attract women to it?
It's kind of both. I mean, I think the aesthetic is a big part of it, right? If you have like a softer cottage core aesthetic, it's going to appeal more to women, whereas if you have the like, you know, manly Nordic Viking aesthetic, that appeals more to men, like just on a surface level. And I really wish people didn't pick their religion based on aesthetics. I see this with Christians. I remember back in New York, I spent quite a bit of time around Catholics, and they were complaining to me. They're like, all these people are just getting into Catholicism because they saw some cool edit on TikTok, and they know nothing about Catholicism, and now they're catechizing people wrong, right?
Yeah.
So I think all religions kind of have this problem, right? But I think beyond that, the other appeal is, I guess, that history. I mean, the truth is there is this kind of pseudo-history about witchcraft that is out there, about it as like a secret persecuted group of women throughout history. This is largely not correct. That's largely not why the witch trials happened. Margaret Murray was a historian who came up with this narrative. She is now debunked in historic circles, but she definitely created a folk history that a lot of people believe, right? That even, you know, you can bring up that Margaret Murray was not a great historian, not going to change people's minds, right? People are very much believer of her, almost to the point where it's like theology at this point.
Yeah.
But that history appeals to a lot of women, just kind of obviously. A woman-centered religion is appealing. And, you know, the truth is, I think the reasonable bit of that is that I think Christianity has unfortunately diminished the divine feminine, even though the divine feminine objectively exists in the Christian mysteries. If you read the Bible, if you read what Christian mystics are writing about, which I have quite a bit of respect for Christianity. People are always surprised as a pagan. I respect Christianity. I think there's a lot of beauty in that tradition. And I think it's part of like the history of like civilization is kind of important. But there is divine feminine in that, but it has been diminished over time, right? That is true. And a lot of people, a lot of women want the divine feminine. They want to connect to their femininity. They want that experience, which is normal. Connecting to your femininity, divine feminine is a good thing. I worship a goddess. Divine femininity is part of my life. And the witchy stuff feels very divine feminine centric. Of course, the divine femininity exists in other forms of paganism, but people gravitate towards what's more obvious. And I think on the other end, I think a lot of men are just more like history buff types. Like just that seems to be a tendency, like men like ancient civilizations. If you're a nerd about an ancient civilization, you're probably more likely to read those pagan writings and then go, oh yeah, this might be my religion. This is actually what I believe. So I think that's probably why that split exists.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm glad you touched on the Catholicism, because I have also noticed that, especially in strains of right-wing culture, you see these young men that all of a sudden want to convert to Catholicism because of, like you mentioned, some based edit they found online. And I always find that quite interesting, because on the one hand, there's like an argument to be made, like, well, if this is bringing them to the Lord, I heard Christians make this argument, you know, it's better than nothing, right? But on the other hand, and how I look at it is like, well, are they actually engaging with the scripture and the spirituality that Christianity entails, or is it just cultural Christianity or cultural Catholicism? And but yeah, aestheticism, of course, I think it's difficult to separate spirituality / religion from aestheticism. I mean, it is part of the spiritual experience. So I guess both kind of hold the answer to that. But regardless, I wanted to ask you, as we're drawing a close to our interview here, but this is a really big question, and as you know, I engage more in the political sphere of things. I like to talk, and on this show so far I've talked about political figures. I have heard, and this may sound a little woo coming from me, and I don't know how true this is, but you know, I've heard from outsiders say that people in positions of power and in roles of government, they can engage in some rather questionable behaviors, since we are talking about witchcraft here. Do you think that people in positions of power whether it's in history of the United States or now, do you think they engage in some practices that would be considered witchcraft, or that would get them those positions of power, or maybe utilize resources in a manner that benefits them or their constituency? Or do you think this is just a complete conspiracy theory?
So I think there's obviously elements of conspiracy, but overall, I mean, that's true. Like, there's documentation of this. Like, the truth is, people in power have used mystical techniques. This is heavily documented. I mean, Ronald Reagan had an astrologer.
It's true,
right?
Yeah.
And we know, like, the King Charles in the UK has had a heavy history reading Gwynon and interested in perennialism. We know during World War II, on both sides of that conflict, there were people consulting with occultists. There's a lot of really interesting historical writings on this. You saw that on both sides of that war, actually. This goes way back. I mean, if you look further back, like one of the greatest esoteric writers in history, John Dee, was literally the court astrologer in the United Kingdom for a while. Like, heavy history of this. This is not like something that's that shocking. Now, of course, people run to crazy places with it. But yeah, I mean, the truth is, if people have techniques that can get them ahead, they're going to use it. I don't see it as any different than praying your way into power, really.
Yeah.
And I think the idea, like, some people use this as some big argument against esoteric techniques. It's an argument that you should be doing it. It's an argument that you should be doing it to promote something better, right? Because you can have esoteric techniques built on ideas like virtue that you really agree with, and you can sort of counter that. So, I mean, yeah. I mean, why would you ignore the knowledge if it's there, right? Like, I think that, yeah, it's true, but doesn't mean we shouldn't, and doesn't mean these techniques are bad, right? I mean, it depends how you use a hammer, right? So
exactly. I mean, if it works, it works. Well, you heard it here first, folks. It is true. People in positions of power have done that. Because I've been trying to say this to people, and I've heard people call me conspiracy theorist, that it isn't true. But you're right. Even Ronald Reagan had an astrologer, so you can't deny the fact that people with power, you don't know, they do dabble in these things, and it very much could have gotten them their position they're in. It very, very much could have gotten them successful.
Oh, yeah.
Georgina, I want to thank you for coming on my stream. Again, I find your posts and your writings very interesting, and I think that as American culture continues to evolve, it's really important to keep this in mind because, like I said, I have been seeing resurgences of paganism occur in the United States and in the greater Western world, and I'm interested to see where it's going because I think you're right on part to say that because we're so inundated with technology that we kind of do want to get back to our natural roots, right? Whether that's ancestral or just in the natural world, people want to they want to just like surround themselves in the natural world more so they can feel more attuned, more holistic in their experience with the world and the cosmos. And what you write about I find quite interesting. I want to thank you for coming on. Where can people find you? Where's the best place to find you? Obviously, I'm going to pull up your Twitter, your Substack, your YouTube afterwards, but just give a quick rundown of, I think you have a link tree in your bio. Is that correct, where people can find all your stuff?
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me on. I think this was an interesting conversation. I'm under .darling, D-A-A-T Darling. You can also search Georgina Rose. It should come up on pretty much every platform. I'm on YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Substack, Telegram, Threads. I don't know anywhere I'm not on, honestly. Like, I think I have a platform everywhere, unless it's some social media platform I've never heard of. And I am also the host of the Postmodern Iconoclast, which is on, it's on my YouTube channel, the whole series, but it's also on Spotify, most podcasting platforms. I mean, I'm really everywhere. So yeah, just search my name and you'll find me.
Well, there you have it. If paganism is something you guys are interested in, or if you want to learn more about it, we're going to have her links afterwards. I'll be posting her social media where you can find her. Georgina, I want to thank you so much. I have a lot more coming up, you guys. We're going to be talking about Laura Loomer next, so stay tuned. I'm going to pull up you guys' favorite commercial. In the meantime, stay tuned, and we will have those stories up. But once again, give Georgina a round of applause and your positive comments. Yeah, I'll be having her socials on at the end here, so you can take a look at that. Thank you, everyone, and I'll be right back.
Well, here comes Rosanna Yellow like Marilyn with a twist. She's got a master's degree and a style you can't resist. On Culturama, baby, we're shaking up the scene. So hit that like, make it click, you know what we mean. Like and subscribe, come on, don't delay. With Daniela at the helm, we're leading the way. It's Culturama, taking back tomorrow today.
You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock, we are forcing behaviors.
Mao ordered his citizens to throw off the four olds. Old thinking, old culture, old customs, and old habits. So, your whole life went in the garbage overnight, no biggie. And those who resisted were attacked by an army of purifiers called the Red Guard, who went around the country putting dunce caps on people. Yeah, who didn't take to being a new kind of mortal being.
If you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted.
Well, things haven't been so sweet for Ben & Jerry's after the company posted an anti-American tweet, a few of them, on the 4th of July. The ice cream makers declared the United States was founded on stolen indigenous land.
Well, someone should tell Target that, because they're now selling swimsuits with tuckums in the women's section of the store. And they even have a line just for kids.
Yeah, we're going to reach out to Ben & Jerry's and ask them how they can live with themselves as they operate a multi-billion-dollar company on stolen land while declaring other people give up their so-called stolen land.
This is the child section. This is literally the kids section. I'm next to a literal onesie that says whatever the hell that means. We have glad you came out, and I'm so happy that you're queer. In the kids section. Are you kidding me? I'm sorry, but pride and toddler don't belong in the same sentence.
Good news! Starbucks will offer its workers reimbursement of travel expenses related to accessing abortion and gender-affirming procedures.
Kyle Rittenhouse was seen wearing a Black Rifle Coffee Company shirt, and they wanted to distance themselves from that individual. Key employees at the company also were donating to Democrats. Hayford doubled down on throwing many in his base under the bus, describing them as racist and a repugnant group of people.
Hey, Liberty lovers, stop screwing.
Okay, we are back. What did you guys think about that interview? I think it was very interesting. Again, I have been reading her material and following her stuff for quite some time on Twitter and Substack and elsewhere. And if this is something that you find interesting, if you find like esotericism and other religions interesting, it is definitely something to check out, especially as cultures continue to evolve and we see changes in the zeitgeist happening here in the culture. I think it would be very important to check her stuff out. And that's what I'm about to do here, is pull up her socials for you guys. But before I do that, I did see we got 33 minutes ago. I'm so sorry about this, Robbie Thurman. I hope you're still online to see me read your donation. But he donated $10 and he said, I like Trump's attorney general choice. We need more hot blondes in politics. Flame emoji. Very well put, Robbie Thurman. And I agree. We do need more blondes, particularly the attractive ones in politics. Thank you so much for your donations, everyone. Money does talk. Thank you for your donation, and I will read your comment one way or the other if you donate a Rumble Rant to this channel. So thank you so much. I also got a text coming in by JJ, I believe it was. He said it was Nancy Reagan's astrologer. Yes, I guess technically it was Nancy Reagan's astrologer. However, I did find an article that stated that the astrologer also helped quite strongly to guide President Reagan's schedule. So I think she took an active role in the outcomes of President Reagan's activities. So But yes, I technically was Nancy Reagan's astrologer. Anyway, let me pull up the socials, and then after we look over Georgina Rose's socials, we're going to be talking about the one and only Laura Loomer. She's a wacky one. There's a lot of information that's come out about Laura Loomer, so we'll be talking about her. Let me first pull up the lady that we've interviewed today, Georgina Rose. This is her Twitter. You can find her at @darling. It's DAAT Darling, and this is her YouTube. It's under the same name, and here's an introductory video here. Internet occultists are lying to you is the title of it. And there are a plethora of other shorts and videos you could find on our channel that help outline the pagan experience, the pagan belief, a few esoteric topics here and there, and what is hearth magic, what is self-initiation, occult mysteries of Jupiter, really interesting stuff like that. If you're a nerd like me, you may get a lot out of this. Also, here's her link tree in her bio. You can find on her Twitter account, and there's her Patreon and another place to make donations and various other places if you want to support her and her cause. You also can find her Instagram or Threads, Odyssey, Telegram. She really is everywhere. And her YouTube, like we have found. So again, that is Georgina Rose or Dat Darling on Twitter and on YouTube, and there you can find her. Anyway. This is a big one. This is the big story of the hour, and we have only a little bit left of this show, so I'm going to dive right into it. You guys, I think, are going to get a lot out of this one, but is Laura Loomer cooked? So what has happened the other day is that Milo Yiannopoulos has showed on Timcast, the show. Apparently, Timcast did not shut down quite yet, and he spilled the beans on quite a few interesting details about Laura Loomer and her engagement with Trump and the Trump campaign and Trump campaign officials, as well as other things like her faking her ethnicity and faking being Jewish. Let's take a listen, and we'll look at a few other allegations that he has made.
Ye got a bit spooked about blowing his relationship up forever with Trump. So I kind of took the fall for it. I fell on my sword and I said it was me. I was trying to get back at Trump for not recognizing me after the election. It was a very plausible lie because I did kind of feel like that, and I said I took the rap for it. But the real story is that Ye asked me
Hold on a second. He's first talking about Nick Fuentes here. We've talked enough about Nick Fuentes on this show. We'll just gloss over that. But yeah, he talks about Nick Fuentes a little bit with the Trump dinner, and then he talks about Laura Loomer. But I want to watch the full clip because it does give the full context. But as we proceed further,
what's going to really leave a dent? What's going to leave a mark? And I'm like, I don't know, take Fuentes. That'll do it. So anyway, with this poor woman, Karen Giorno, who I know is, she's basically the person you call in Florida if you want to get somebody who's not in the usual Mar-a-Lago circle into the circle and sort of smoothly move through that environment, right? So I called her and I said, could you pick up Kanye West at the airport and drive him to dinner? And I didn't tell her that Nick Fuentes was in the car. And so anyway, there's a lot more to that, and I'll leave it for.
Can I follow up with you something on there, because it's sort of like in this quote. But first, they wanted to personally thank Milo for helping with the campaign smear once useful idiots and no longer Trump allies. Isn't it odd, because it sounds like you brought Nick Fuentes to the dinner and you're taking care of a problem that you helped make for Trump?
That's probably true. Although
I also want to point out, and I don't want Milo coming for me because he's known to do that. It's interesting how Milo has glasses on this entire, because I found multiple clips of Milo Yiannopoulos on this show, and he's just been wearing these sunglasses. I wonder if that's for a reason. However, before Milo comes after me, Milo, I was one of the few that did buy your book when it came out, Dangerous. You remember what happened with the publication of this book? I just want to say I own a copy and I read through it, and it's actually decently written. I do recommend it. But before you come for me, I do want to let you know that I did give you money. So anyway, proceeding forward.
It's like, thanks for taking out the garbage that you threw in my campaign.
Well, it was nice enough for them to call and say thank you. But what they're really talking about, you must really hate me. What they're really talking about was Laura Loomer.
Can you talk
Laura Loomer?
Here we go.
Laura Loomer.
Why was she brought in?
Of course,
to begin with,
completely insane. And Laura was brought on into the campaign by Jason Miller, who is that sort of frog-faced, useless bag of never mind. But Jason Miller has done nothing but make it more difficult for Trump to win since he was brought into the inner circle. But he's either got something on Trump or he brings money in. I don't know which one it is. Nobody does. But Jason Miller and Boris Epshteyn, who's the head of Trump's legal team, these are the two guys who were kind of like, oh yeah, Laura Loomer, maybe Laura Loomer. And so she gets on the plane, and then Laura Loomer claims to a bunch of people in Palm Beach, all of her friends around in Miami, that she had performed
Family friendly.
Huh?
Monica Lewinsky.
I was going to say a sex act.
There you go.
A sex act.
She alleged this. She alleged to people she was
Listen,
spreading those.
I love you and I try to take care of you. And do you know how difficult it is for me to talk like this on your show? Do you know? Do you know how hard this is?
A members only show.
Okay, let's skip forward.
No, she claimed that she had performed a sex act on the president to a lot of her friends. And this, I was like, okay, all right, okay. So I got a call from somebody, and they said, we need to get rid of her. The president wants to get rid of her, but he doesn't want to be the one to do it because she's crazy. So we don't want her turning on the president because so many people, so many followers and everything. So my job was to bring things about Laura to light that made her ineligible to,
She's done a sex act. I wonder what kind of sex act we are talking about here. Let's watch a little bit more.
Be on the plane and around the president's circle. So, for instance, she's not Jewish. She made it up. A friend of mine was there when she did it. She ordered a Star of David necklace off the internet so that she could be ruder about Jews.
She made up being Jewish. Now, when I was listening to this, I thought there's absolutely no way that this is real. That's an absolutely ridiculous statement to make. But we have video evidence of we perhaps have actual video evidence of this happening. I'm going to get to that in a second. Let's just finish up this clip.
In on stage at a rally in 2018.
Laura Loomer isn't Jewish?
She's not Jewish. She's the only person in history.
Wait, so
She's the only person in history. I submitted her for the Guinness Book of Records because she's the only person in history who's ever had a nose job to look more Jewish. It's most amazingly.
That is hard to believe. I don't know if I believe that one. He still needs to have proof for that claim.
You've ever heard in your life. But I also
I've never heard that about her before.
No, but she's not actually Jewish. When she
even ran for Congress, and that never came up.
Right. When she well, that's because I was a communications director. No, when
maybe he did not a great job.
Sorry.
It sounds like things went sour with Laura, and you guys have a lot of bad blood, and you sank her as a result of that. Am I reading this right?
People do pay me a lot of money to clean up my own messes. I'm just realizing this now.
Yeah.
Never get involved with Milo. Do you trust this catty gay? Is what he's saying accurate? Or do you think he's just throwing people under the bus for the sake of throwing them under the bus and burning their reputations? Well, that's what I thought, because whatever Milo touches, it does seem to break apart. He's a very inflammatory figure, but I think you could be right here. Laura Loomer is kind of a crazy lady, because as I've gone further into this investigation, not investigation, but like tell all, and as I've investigated these claims, it seems to be that Laura Loomer is not the most stable person and has a rather questionable background. For instance, Milo's tweeted this. Gavin Wax, for those that don't know, he is president of the New York Young Republicans, quite a pretty large state chapter. Was stalked by a serial predator, and her name is Laura Loomer, who added his family members on Facebook, called him from anonymous numbers, and showed up to his work. Let's take a look at this. This is a rather older video, it looks like, because Gavin looks nothing like that anymore. But let's take a listen and see what he has to say about this.
Hi, my name is Gavin Wax. I'm here to talk about the
Hold on a second. Does this prove the previous claims that Milo has made? Not necessarily, but we'll get to those. I just want to show and illustrate to you how the depths of crazy that we are dealing with right now. If Gavin Wax has come, and I think Gavin Wax has a pretty stable reputation. He's a pretty clean-cut figure as far as I'm aware. I don't think he would just come out and defame someone like this. So I think when I did watch this video, I think there was some credence to what Milo has been saying about Laura Loomer's stability as we proceed further. But I'm talking too much. Let's just take a listen.
Predator Laura Loomer. I met with her, and it went from a professional meeting, and it slowly descended into this really weird, awkward, and bizarre date. She was trying to make it into a date, And I sort of realized this, and I cut it short. The week or weeks thereafter, I was getting dozens and dozens of just texts, unsolicited, calls unsolicited. They were just getting more and more strange by the day. I started to ignore her, and I started to realize she was probably stalking me. I learned that she was adding friends on Facebook of mine that had never met her, and was adding my family on Facebook, was commenting on photos, writing really weird things. I had to delete them, and it just got really out of hand. I would start getting calls randomly from restricted numbers, answer, hang up, one day, I was at work towards the end of the day, almost 6 o'clock, get a call from the front desk, said there's a guest here for Gavin. Her name was Laura, and can we let them up? And we said, no, don't let her up. She's not.
Yeah,
she hasn't
please,
been invited.
God, no, do not let her
allowed to
up.
come to the
She will
office.
go postal.
I thought she was absolutely insane by this point, so I had to leave through an emergency exit and leave out like a side street. She found out where I lived because she started sending me my address via text at this point. This was right after she found out where I worked, the exact address that is. She would go to all these other Republican events in the city, like young Republican events and stuff like that, and she would just approach friends of mine or not even friends, like acquaintances, and interrogate them and just demand to know where I was, who I was with, where I was going. She would tell them that like we went on all these dates and like all these ridiculous things that just never happened. And I literally met her at this point, or like even encountered her like maybe 3 times.
3 times.
Then she basically started messaging me, why am I ignoring you? Why am I ignoring you? And if you don't stop, I'm going to expose you for what you are. You're a Nazi, all this other stuff. And she knows I'm Jewish. She said she would post my address and all my personal information to her followers and all this other stuff. Then she would also just start telling all people I knew at these events that I was gay because I wasn't interested in her.
That's the last resort for all women, is that when they feel completely snubbed, they will call you gay. First, stalking. This is an interesting tier of events. Stalking, adding your family members on Facebook, showing up to your work, calling you a Nazi, but then calling you gay. Very interesting. Anyway, on top of that, this has nothing to do with the claims of her faking her ethnicity, right? I mean, she's not that crazy. Maybe she had a crush on Gavin Wax and she just couldn't let it go. It happens to the best of us, right? Never happened to me, but happens to the best of us. You get a crush, you can't let it go. Milo posted this video today, okay? Someone was egging him on, saying post the proof that she has faking her ethnicity. He finally did.
All right, there we go.
Very good. They're almost identical. And
don't take photos of this. I don't want people knowing.
Don't take photos of this, bro.
very good. They're almost identical. And
don't take photos of this. I don't want people knowing.
So, for those that don't know what's happening here, Laura Loomer is said to be practicing how to draw the Star of David, and it seems to be that she has made a chart for herself where she could practice doing it multiple times because she did not know how to draw the Star of David. Is this proof that she is faking her ethnicity? Not necessarily, but you kind of have to admit, why is she drawing 4 stars of David on a whiteboard titled, I think it's called, what is that? What is it even titled? It's like the something election. Hold on a second. I if someone can read it for me, comment underneath in the comment section. It's something election. It's interesting. Interesting. Yeah, you see that?
very good. They're almost identical.
I can't read what that says on the whiteboard. Someone please tell me what it says. Anyway, moving on. After everything that has been unleashed about Laura Loomer comes out with that dog in her, and she has written out this epistle of how she completely wants to cancel Tim Cast after Tim Cast has acted so unprofessionally by letting Milo on his show. And I'm not going to read all of this, but she is saying that these are all allegations and none of them are true. The allegations made about the Trump family and President Trump's staff are also completely fake, and I can prove it. And she talks about how it's outrageous and that Tim should be completely ashamed of himself. And, you know, she mentions also about MTG and Milo's involvement with MTG. She writes, "It is well known that the person he had on this show works for Marjorie Taylor Greene," she's talking about Milo, "who paid to set President Trump up at Mar-a-Lago. That has also been documented, and there are people who work for President Trump who are aware of the fact that the lies spewed about me last night all originated from Marjorie Taylor Greene." These are the same, also a very sane individual, may I add. These are the same things that she said about me when she tried to torpedo my job with President Trump when he hired me in March of 23. And she has continued to use one of her own staffers to spread lies about me and President Trump. Clearly, two very sane individuals here. And it has also come out that Laura Loomer was kind of egging Milo on by, I guess, threatening him to stop what it is that he's doing and revealing by saying that she would sue him. And he was practically begging her to sue. And here's the screenshot of the tweet. "I filed a lawsuit against Bill Maher for the false allegations against me that were once again maliciously repeated and further exaggerated on Timcast." And Milo is egging her on to, you know, tell her, sue me next, because she has been threatening to sue him. But regardless of all this, what is the conclusion of this? If Laura Loomer really has, you know, her reputation's clean, she shouldn't be worried about anything, how does she respond to all of this amidst of all this information, or quote information, coming out supposedly defaming her? She has blocked Milo. Very well done. He has officially got Laura Loomer to block him, and this is no easy feat. I don't know if Laura Loomer goes on mass block campaigns like some other users, but I think this really hit the nail on the coffin, and he has accomplished quite a bit. And to add insult to injury, if you go to Milo's Twitter account, you will see he changed his background image to this, by the way. Very well done. And his bio states civil rights icon. I just want to put that out. I don't know if that has always been there. I just found that funny. Something tells me he just changed it. I could be wrong. But at any rate, I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think there's any credence to any of these claims? This one I think is the most telling, is her making up doing the Jewish
Very
Star of
good.
David
They're
here.
almost identical. And
don't take photos of this. I don't want people knowing.
Also, why would she allow Milo? This is just my question, right? Because she must have known Milo's reputation by this point. Again, very catty guy. He keeps receipts. He keeps videos and pictures of people for years. I don't know exactly when this was taken, but she must have known the kind of personality and the profile this individual has, and the character profile Milo has. Why would you just stand there and giggle and say, don't take a picture of me, don't take a video of me, and not demand him to delete it right now, knowing Milo's history? Very odd. She must have really trusted him, I suppose, but apparently she got a nose job too to look Jewish. I don't think that part is true, but yeah. I hold on a second. I want to make sure I'm not missing out on any notable. We got a decent audience on Rumble. Thank you for everyone tuning in. $5 from Entropy Nomad from 13 minutes ago. Sorry, I missed it. He wrote, Milo is selling a book. He sells well with this drama. Enough said. Elad is just collateral damage, and these clips grabs popcorn intensifies. Yes, exactly. I didn't know he was selling another book. I think I just recently saw a video of him on Timcast, a clip of him showing another book. Was that the one with Nick Fuentes on it? Or he writes about Nick Fuentes? I could be wrong, but I think you're correct to say he is having a new book. The only book I've ever read by him was Dangerous, and it's kind of interesting. But, you know, I think, if I'm not mistaken, he had to make his own publishing company to publish the book after, you know, what happened in 2017. You know, do you know what I'm talking about? The falling out with with some of the choice comments that he made. Milo had huge beef with Lauren Southern too, wrote Many Peregrine 81. I am not familiar with Milo's history with Lauren Southern, but it's funny that you mentioned Lauren Southern because I did kind of want to talk about another drama that occurred with Lauren Southern. And I don't know if you guys know who Destiny is. He's a streamer. I can actually pull up that story here in a second. Let me see if I have that going. But did you guys know? Do you guys know who Destiny is? He's this he's a lib streamer. He's a liberal, so he's not so much known within right-wing circles, but I'm sure a lot of you know who Lauren Southern is. Hold on a second. I am trying to pull these stories up in real time. I usually do this during the commercial breaks, but someone mentioned Lauren Southern and I'm obligated to mention it right here. So since we have just a couple more minutes left, apparently OmniLiberal, which is this guy, Destiny, he is a leftist streamer. He's part of the BreadTube universe, or I guess he's being ousted by BreadTube. BreadTube means just the liberal streaming community. He apparently has slept with Lauren Southern, and this has been going out. It's kind of petty news, but I thought it'd be interesting to mention. And there have been DMs that were leaked. What is it with Destiny having so much riz to pull girls like Lauren Southern? What do you guys think? Apparently Destiny sleeps with like everyone and everything. Apparently men and women that cross his paths. And it's usually people within his own community, but I would never guess that he would sleep with Lauren Southern, and we have leaks to prove it. And I didn't want to focus too much on this story because it's kind of like a whatever story, like, okay, they slept with each other or whatever. But considering that they are both from two very opposite, opposing political sides of the aisle, everyone has been clowning on Lauren Southern for making this decision, especially for an individual as handsome as this. But we all know that Lauren Southern does not have the best taste in men. As far as I'm aware, wasn't she involved with like a Fed? Wasn't she literally married to a Fed for like quite some time? That like she cheated on her, or she cheated on him. I don't know. There's some weird situation. I just know that she's not the best. She does not have the best choice in men. Someone wrote, Bucks Nasty wrote, he's rich. Yeah, I don't think she slept with him to get his money, though. But, yeah, I mean, Destiny does have some money. That's true. But, yeah, does anyone know what Lauren Southern's beef is with Destiny, anyway? So, Many Peregrine 81 wrote, that's a Mr. Medicare clip. The one with Milo, or the one with Laura Loomer drawing the Star of David. I did notice that. I did find the clip to the original video, actually. Someone DM'd it to me, and Milo told me what that video was from. So I think Mr. Medicare is dead, though, so I don't think he's still making videos anymore. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Oh, Many Peregrine, you know a lot of information. 81, you wrote, oh, when she was dating that Austrian Fed guy and had a baby with her. Yes. So they had a child together. She married this guy. They had a child together, and it turned out he was a Fed. And at the end left her and her baby like a boss, LOL. Okay, well, I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't say it's boss behavior, Many Peregrine, to leave your wife with child. But Lauren Southern kind of got played a little bit, and I do feel sorry for her. She did have a little bit of a tumultuous career, especially in her early 20s and so forth. So, you know, I think she's my age, though. So she should know a little better now, but she hasn't had the best luck or the easiest experience in professional politics. But you gotta admit that she doesn't have the best choice in men, and why would you sleep with Destiny? I just don't understand that. Anyway, this has been a great episode. We have covered a lot. I didn't even get to the topics I wanted to talk about because we've covered so much today, but I want to thank everyone that has joined on Rumble, on X, and on other platforms. I saw today that we had YouTube comments. We had Twitch comments as well, which is big. I couldn't read any of them, but thank you for writing in the comments. and, engaging with the stream. We've had donations at the wazoo. I want to thank you guys for coming out and supporting the show. I'm going to leave you guys with this one gift, and that is a link to the next show that we have, the Liberty Tonight show. It's the fellas of the For Liberty Network, both really funny guys. It's going to be the next stream. I'm going to send the link in the chat. I cannot successfully raid for whatever reason, but I can't raid you guys, but I will put the link in the chat here in a second, and I want you guys to go and visit. And let me pull up the link. Hold on a second. There we go. There we go. I'm going to copy and paste it right now. Alrighty. Here's the link. I'm putting it in the Rumble chat. Oh, actually, let me put it in all. There we go. There is the link for the Liberty Tonight show. I want you guys to go there, join, and show your support. They're going to be on in a couple minutes. I want to thank you, everyone, for coming into Culturama, and thank you for taking your part in reclaiming the spirit of traditional Americana back into the American zeitgeist by having conflictual and sometimes awkward conversations, but also fascinating conversations, political conversations, cultural conversations, social conversations, all contribute to reclaiming the zeitgeist. We have talked a lot about today, but I want you to take whatever it is you took away from the stream and to share it with your friends and your family, and to just have the discussions, that are important to have. And together, hopefully, we can build up these alternative networks of media and information, but also reclaim the zeitgeist in America. And I want to thank you all for joining in the stream tonight. I hope you have a really good rest of your evening, and I hope to see you on the Liberty Tonight show that I put the link in there next. I'll see you guys next week on Tuesday. And I don't think I'll be having a Thanksgiving stream, but I wanted to see you on Thursday for our day before Thanksgiving stream. It's going to be a really big one, and we're going to be talking about the C word. Yes, colonialism. I will be back next week. I'll see you guys next week, Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining tonight.
I'm glowing in the night, shining like a star in this atomic age, a brighter by far. Untouchable energy, it's a glowing affair. Ready and ready, I'll take you everywhere. I'm untouchable now, feel the power in the air. Radioactive rhythm, but sense without care. Electric and alive in this atomic embrace. Unstoppable now in this glowing space.